Welcome to a Netrunner matchup between a Haas-Bioroid Engineering the Future and a Shaper Kate deck. Both of these decks should be using What Lies Ahead and possibly some cards from Trace Amount, so you'll see that coming up. And there you can already see two of the agendas from What Lies Ahead in Mandatory Upgrades. That was a rough opening hand. Mandatory Upgrades has an advancement cost of 6, and Priority Rec obviously has a 5 cost. So he had 3 agendas in his hand, each with a 5 or more advancement cost and 1 ice. That's just not a good position to be in because with the 1 ice, you have to hope you draw into an ice. If you don't, your opponent can just run your hand a few times and probably score 1 or 2 agendas. Mandatory upgrades aren't particularly great, but you still don't want them taking agendas from you. So here's a much better opening hand. 3 ice, an Adonis campaign, and an agenda. It's interesting that there's a cell portal in there, and you can see the agenda is accelerated beta test, so I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to score that as fast as possible. It also looks like he only has 5 cards in hand, so he's going to draw. Yep, there it goes. He draws into a Chum. That's an interesting card. One of the nice things about Chum is even though it really doesn't do anything on its own, it can very well scare the runner out of a run. And so now he drops an Adonis campaign in behind his either an Ichi or Heimdall. I believe it's going to be a Heimdall. I don't know if he has the credits to res it. But one of the nice things about decks with 3 cost agendas to advance is it puts the runner in a position where they have to run to a degree. They take the gamble either that is an agenda that you're going to score and be bad for them, or that you're bluffing. In this case, it would be a bluff, but it's always good to put the runner in the position to have to make that decision. So he drops 2 ice. I didn't see what the other one is. We'll see what the runner does here. He's got a decent opening hand. He's got a Diesel and a Tinkering, so he probably is going to have some options. Runs into Enigma. Great opening ice. Low cost, takes an action. That's probably one of my favorite ice in the game. So let's see what he does here going forward. You can also see he has a Modded and a Crypsis. He drops the Maker's Eye. No ice on R&D. That could really be interesting. And he sees nothing with it. 3 ice. Ouch. So if that's an accelerated beta test, he's got a problem. So he's definitely hoping it isn't. On the bright side, that's 2 whole turns that he effectively can take to draw cards or gain credits. We'll see if he draws a card here or not. One of the great things about having a Diesel and 2 Moddeds. So basically, he can draw a bunch of cards next turn and probably drop in 2 programs for free. Well, not free, but a relatively low cost with those modded. We'll see if he does that. He already knows the ice that's coming up. That could very well be the toll booth that the runner or the corp just placed in front of R&D. So yep, there goes a Diesel. Draws. Oh, jeez, that is a lot of card draw. I'm not sure. It looks like the leftmost card is either a Crypsis or a Battering Ram, so we'll see what he drops. Cyber Feeder is a fun card. If you're doing a lot of running, you can and regularly using it to spend on ice breaking, it's a great card. Obviously, there aren't going to be many viruses out of a Shaper deck unless you really build around it, but I had them in my early Shaper deck for a long time because it's just one of those things. It increases it decreases the amount of credits you need to make a run each turn. So it over the long run tends to pay back itself. We'll see if he drops it early. Nope, he's just going to run HQ. Never really a bad decision if you don't know what's in there. You know, when you get to the point where there's a 50% chance or greater that you're going to hit a card, it's not as beneficial. Like, see, there you go, score an agenda very easily. So that takes out the threat of 1 accelerated beta test, which is always nice. That's one of the scarier agendas because HP, while it can backfire on them, it can quickly create a megafort for them as well, especially if they're running cards like Giannis and Heimdall. It can get unwieldy very quickly. So now the Corp reses the Adonis campaign. Let's see what he draws into. He draws into a Giannis. Can't see his credits, so I'm not sure if he has enough to res that. We'll see what he makes a play here for. He doesn't really have well, he kind of has a secure fort, so he could try to push through and draw an agenda to try and pass it. Yeah, he definitely doesn't have the credits for Giannis. But at the same time, we know the Shaper has Tinkering, and tricks like that can really screw with your planning. I had a couple games in the tournament we played this past Saturday where I tried to quickly push through an agenda behind an ice wall, and people were dropping just a Crypsis or an inside job on me, and it was painful. So there you can see he uses another diesel. This is the huge advantage of having modded in your hand with diesels. You can diesel and then use the modded to clear your hand and effectively be right back down to 5 cards. So diesel modded, especially have Shaper, is very powerful. You can see he has the Gordian Blade to possibly break the Enigma, but he is in a risky situation where if that front card is a Roto turret, he could lose a Battering Ram or the Gordian Blade, and you don't really want to do that. So there you can see he used the Infiltrate to gain 2 credits. It's tough to do that because if you're going to run on traps late game, it hurts to not have the Infiltrate. But at the same time, that 2 credits means that he's going to be able to draw a little bit faster to get to that Magnum Opus because now he gets the credits out of it, and it's not technically a wasted draw. So he has 6 cards in hand. We'll see what he does with the rest of his hand. He makes another run on HQ. Not a bad decision. He doesn't know what's in there. Sees a chum. So, he now knows 50%. Actually, he already did know it was 50%, so that was an interesting decision. Drops the Cyber Feeder and passes it back to the Corp. Corp draws into a wall of static. That's kind of a nice card against Battering Ram, because with the 1 subroutine, Battering Ram costs 2 to break it, but the Cyber Feeder that the runner installed is somewhat going to counteract that. So here the runner goes again with a Diesel, and there you go. There's the Magnum Opus. I highly doubt he won't modded Magnum Opus this, and you can see him already considering it. The faster you get to Magnum Opus, the better chance you have of winning the game as Shaper. It really is as simple as that. You need to be able to support it, so you can see right here that he already has his 4 MU filled up, so he's going to have to find a toolbox or mem chips or something. But this is just a position where you are really happy that you got that Magnum Opus early. Because now you can draw cards, or you can take credits so that you can play cards. It winds up being nice. So the Corp draws into a shipment from Miramorph. He has a lot of ice, but at the same time, it's not really ice that's going to benefit him except for the wall static. So I would be highly surprised. Wow, he is really building that Mega Fort. It's very interesting. Either he has a really good ice in front of R&D, or he is not worried about the runner being able to break it. Because if the runner can dictate what you're drawing, you can get into a very bad game flow. That when the runner knows every card you're going to draw, he pretty much denies you an agenda unless you choose to take an action per turn to draw another card. So when they can control your R&D, it can be a bad thing. So the runner draws here. He doesn't really get anything useful. He needs MU right now. He can keep running HQ to try and get agendas, but he already sort of knows what's in there. So, and he's got a lot of duplicates. It's good and bad to have duplicates of cards in your deck because, as you can see, he's got pretty much 3 Gordian Blades in his hand, which is totally useless. But at the same time, he did draw the Gordian Blade. So it's one of those things you have to decide whether you want to risk it. It's a risk-reward type thing. Do you want to risk not drawing it, or do you want to make sure you draw it and then risk it being negative when you do draw multiples? So here, he tinkering so that he can run R&D. And, wow, he scores another agenda. So there you go. That is the disadvantage of being able to control R&D. Corp can't draw an agenda. So there is one agenda. Oh man, it's a good thing that wasn't a Maker's Eye. He draws into a second mandatory upgrades, it looks like. Ooh, he's going to try and pass it. Very interesting. He doesn't have a ton of credits here, but at the same time, the runner can't run that unless he has a mem chip in his hand. He doesn't have a code gate breaker, and I highly doubt he's going to trash the Battering Ram just to be able to run that. So here he draws a pipeline and a modded, still no mem chips. So this is the disadvantage of Magnum Opus. You have to have the memory to play those cards, and he does not. So he may try and run R&D again, but I doubt it without the tinkering because, again, you don't want to risk a Rototurret blowing up your Magnum Opus or your Battering Ram. So I think he's just going to keep drawing and try to get to his mem chips here. So you can see a Plascrete there. Well, that's one of the newer cards. It's always an interesting choice. See, you can see him discarding it. So in this example, it's a dead card, but against Scorched Earth, it can pretty much prevent them from running the game. So it's always an interesting choice. The Corp draws and then advances the mandatory upgrades 3 times. So pretty much next turn, he's going to gain an extra action for the rest of the game, unless the runner gets really lucky here. I'm not sure what that was. Looks like the runner was discarding from his last turn. So we'll see what he does. I assume he's going to continue to draw here. He's in a position where that's really what he needs to do. He needs a toolbox or a mem chip, and that's going to continue to be the case, I think, really until he draws one. He could choose to trash the battering ram, but I think he discarded it, so now he doesn't have one to back himself up. And he can't exactly run the Megafor. And at this point, he's run HQ enough that any agendas that the Corp is now drawing are going to go in the Megafor, so it's no longer to his advantage to run on HQ. So I'm sure he's trying to decide whether or not to install the Icebreaker just to run that. He runs a risk. He doesn't have the Infiltrate, so he doesn't know if it is going to be a trap and just trash his hand, or sorry, trash his programs. But at the same time, he could just install that Enigma there and try and go blow that up. Wow, I am shocked that the Corp res anything, knowing that he couldn't break the Enigma. That was odd. He could not break the Enigma. He would have lost an action. The runner, that was probably a move by the runner just to try to get the Corp to res something. So that was very interesting. You can see the runner deciding what to discard. And let's see, it looks like a Gordian Blade, so he's probably keeping one or two of those in his hand. He draws into an Adonis campaign, and I would not be shocked here if he just scored the mandatory upgrades. Yep, there he goes, scoring mandatory upgrades. Now, as a bonus, you immediately get that action, so there he goes, installing the Adonis campaign in his Megafor. So, I'm wondering how many mem chips the runner has in his deck, or toolboxes. Sure Gamble, nice. Always a good card, because you can always spend it. He really wants that mem chip, though. No, you know, it's not a surprise. He needs the mem chip. It's not even a matter of wanting it. He needs it. So we'll see if he spends his last action. Yep, still more economy. And there's the toolbox finally. So he's obviously going to keep that. I'm surprised he's discarding the Sure Gambles, but at the same time, it's not going to help him that much. So there you can see he's saving the Gordian Blade. He's pretty much saving his rig. All the cards that can get his rig up fast, he's saving. So now he passes it back to the Corp. We'll see if the Corp reses the Adonis campaign. I know I like to sit on those things a little while to kind of put some heat on the runner. But at the same time, if you don't immediately score it, they know it's not like an accelerated beta test. So it's more important just to install that card that they don't know what it is than it is to keep it there. So now he's just going to res it. There are a few situations like a breaking news. So that could have been another mandatory upgrades, and he could have just let it sit there until he was in a position he knew to score it. So there is a little bit of that is a bluffing element you can play. So you can see he finally protects HQ, which that's also a bluffing element. You know, the runner may now think, hey, why did he install an ice on HQ? Does he have something there that's good? But we can see he just has ice in his hand. He's still sitting on the shipment for Meramorph. It was a good move to not use it there, because now the runner knows that, you know, that one card, or the runner may still think the one card in his hand is an agenda. So the runner just takes 8 credits after with the Magnum Opus, to install the toolbox. So that was pretty much his turn. He installs a wall static on archives, planning for future beta tests. Goes back to the runner here. Runner has only 3 cards in his hand. Installs a Gordian Blade, so right now he is susceptible to a Neural Katana. He doesn't have a pipeline or anything. Oh, there he drops the pipeline. Pipeline's interesting. It's not a great card, but it has just enough functionality to be not useless either, because it can break shadows and rotor turrets for free. So, that's a rough one to run into, especially in front of R&D. A toll booth will shut down your Maker's Eyes. You can still get them off, but you really have to kind of get ahead of the curve to get them off. It looks like he didn't pay for it and passes it back. So there's the accelerated beta test. He can literally install and score it. Sorry, if that is an accelerated beta test, he can literally install and score it, and it is because he has the 4 actions. So there he goes, installs, scores. We'll see if he activates it. He does not. That's probably the right move right now. The runner can get into archives. The runner has 4 points, so if he does accidentally discard a agenda, it could be game. And if he gets an agenda with some ice, he probably has to put the ice in front of archives, so it's a waste. Alright, so here the runner has what could theoretically be his full rig up. I don't know the remainder of his cards, but we haven't seen a Crypsis or a Femme Fatale or anything, so you can kind of assume this is his full rig. So this puts a lot of pressure on the Corp, because the runner, Magnum Opus, ooh, a snare. Ouch. I think that was the game. That's a rough ending to the game. Of all the cards to expect, that is not one that you would expect coming out of a Haas-Bioroid deck. That's why I kind of always plan for it. I try to always keep my grip full. So there you have it. Just as a runner gets their full rig up, they get overly aggressive and they do something that is so easy to avoid. Just an overly aggressive move, thinking you have the game in hand, and bang, snare kills you. You got to keep your grip full just for these situations. You just can't take that risk because it does exactly what happened. Comes back and bites you. That's all for today, and I'm hoping to have something for you in the coming weeks. I got a little behind with the whole vacation break and then getting sick. So I'm hoping to get back into more of a routine, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.